What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. We decided to be here today because despite it being a 4-game slate, there is a 5-figure top prize in the 20, and generally when that's the case, we like having a show. Considering that MLB is starting this week and we don't know what the GPPs are going to look like on Friday, even if they're decent on Wednesday, I would imagine one of these days we won't be here because of MLB starting. We're here. We have a slate. It's 4 games. Not the best 4 games, but there is 5 figures up for grabs. And for NHL on this day, that is a win. So helping me to break it down, Slim Cliffy, how was your weekend?
Yeah, can't complain too much. Still kind of riding high from that Habs-Avs game on Saturday night. I know it was a shootout loss, but from 4-1 with 11 minutes left in the third period to a 4-4 game in overtime, that was just absolutely wild. Really fun game to watch on Saturday night. Last night, I was telling you before the show that I wasn't really that invested in any of the games going on early. So I was like, you know what? I'll go to an early show. So I went to an early move and I was like, I'll get home and I'll watch Kings Bruins. That should be a decent game. And it was not a decent game. The most exciting thing that happened was we almost got a goalie fight, but yeah, the Kings kind of laid a beat down. Got to hand it to Los Angeles. They've looked uneven at times, but it looks like Kuzmenko's helped stabilize that top line a little bit. Obviously, the Byfield line looks great. Dano Moore, Moore's moving around a little bit in the lineup, but that's typically been a pretty good third line. Kemper looks great. So Kings look like they might be starting to peak at the right time, but that was yesterday. Today is today. None of these games, as I look at them, necessarily jump out to me as oh, I can't wait to watch these games. But by the same token, there's no Toronto, there's no Colorado, there's no Edmonton, there's no Tampa Bay. A lot of those high scoring teams or expensive DFS teams are all off the board. And I think that opens up the slate a little bit more, which I kind of like. You don't have to sit here and wonder, do I have to play 40% Nathan McKinnon or something like that? It like I said, it just kind of opens up the slate a little bit. So honestly, in that sense, I really, really don't mind it.
Yeah, and Dallas is really expensive, but we'll get to them when we get to them. It's not one of those questions, like you said, where they're going to be 40%. There's minutes concerns there, and we'll talk about it. But there's actually some really good power play spots on this slate. Our Blue Jackets getting a big boost here tonight. We'll talk about it. So let's break it down. Before we do, thank you for hanging out with us on a Monday afternoon. The weather is pretty poopers here in New Jersey today. I ended up taking a nap instead of doing what I was supposed to do. Sometimes that happens. But MLB season right around the corner, and we do have a deal for you. If you click that link in the chat and use promo code CYCLE, you'll get your first week for $1. Now, the season starts on Thursday, so if you sign up today, you sign up tomorrow, it doesn't matter. The deal runs through April 4th, 1 full week of MLB action. So even if you sign up today, it's good through April 4th for $1. You can get all the tools, the sims. Give it a shot, especially if you look at the prize pools and go, damn, if NHL ever had anything comparable, I'd take my pants off. You know what I mean? But MLB is somewhat comparable to NHL from a stacking standpoint. Starting pitcher 2 is very much like goalie. There are a lot of similarities. And if you've never played before and you do play NHL and you enjoy it, you should try MLB. and you can try for a week for $1. And if you like it, you can renew. But click that link, use promo code CYCLE, and try it out. You could also, sign up for any of the other sports. MMA has Sims. I had a good weekend in MMA using the Sims. PGA is in a great spot. The Masters are coming up in a few weeks. So, yeah, lots to sign up for if you are interested in going premium. So check that out. But again, MLB is the big one. Promo code CYCLE. You'll have the everything for your convenience for $1 until April 4th. Vancouver Canucks, baby. 2.5 total. Heading into Newark, New Jersey. The Devils have a 2.9 total. Could be Demko in net tonight for Vancouver. I think he's back. There hasn't really been an update on Elias Pettersson or Niels Hoglander, so we really don't know what the Vancouver lines are going to be. In our top stacks, we have Pettersson, Besser, Hoglander, DeBrusk, Sherwood, Suter, Garland, O'Connor, Bluger. But if Pettersson and or Hoglander are out, more so on the Pettersson side, these lines are definitely going to change because they just don't have center depth right now because Philip Heedle's also out. So I think Suter would move up. Then, they called up Atu Rati. So, their center depth is just a mess. So these lines are going to change, which kind of sucks because, the Devils suck. And the Devils really, since Siegenthaler and Hamilton went down, have been one of the worst defensive teams in the league. The problem is Vancouver has been just awful. They got absolutely PDO'd by the Rangers. The Rangers scored 4 goals on 11 shots, and then they scored an empty net goal. Demko coming back maybe helps, but he really hasn't been healthy in 2 seasons. I would imagine it's going to be Suter, DeBrusk, Besser. If Pettersson and Hoglander are out, maybe I'd have some interest in that. But it's one of those things that's I just don't know. So I would probably stick to one-offs, a one-off Besser, one-off DeBrusk. Didn't really have a ton of interest in Elias Pettersson anyway. So it would probably be one-offs. You could pair him with, Quinn Hughes. We'll get to defenseman at the end. I think that's something I would do. It's just normally I'd be I have no interest in Vancouver whatsoever, but it's a 4-game slate, and the Devils have legitimately been one of the worst teams defensively since their injuries. On the Devils side, they mixed up their lines a little bit. They're going Hischier, Meyer, Haula, Bratt, Nason, Glass, and they're both coming in at 14% projected. Hischier and Meyer have had really, really good numbers together this season. A lot of that has not been with Haula. I don't know how much Haula adds to the table here. Nason or Stefan Nason has been their best, the numbers have been the best with him. Haula's just kind of a guy, you know what I mean? He's not bad, but he's not very good at anything. So he's not going to make you worse, but he's certainly not going to make you better. And at 17,600, it's a bit of a concern for me, especially when, outside of Dallas 1, there are a plethora of lines between 15 and 18K. So, I would say you could power play stack and Adam Bratt, but Vancouver does have a decent penalty kill. The Devils' power play hasn't been as great, obviously, with Hughes and Hamilton out. You could do it, but then you're getting really expensive. I don't love it. If I was going to stack a line, it would be Meyer, Hischier, Haula. Glass, Nason, Bratt at 15K and 14% ownership is just kind of too much. Glass and Bratt have been fine, but they got off to an unbelievable start, and you're already starting to see that their creation is slipping a little bit. So really, I like the Devils' top line. Don't love Haula, but not sure I want to pay the ownership on a 4-game slate here.
Yeah, I'll start on the Vancouver side. I mean, it's just for right now, I'm operating under the assumption that Pettersson is out. And the only reason I say that is because they specifically designated him as day-to-day rather than game time decision. If they would have said game time decision, I'd be like, yeah, Pettersson's probably playing. It's a playoff chase, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that they said he's day-to-day and that he left like, what was it, halfway through the game or like at the end of the first period, like something like that. He missed most of that game. Was it Saturday night or Saturday afternoon? So I'm assuming he doesn't play. And if he doesn't play, that means Pius Suter top line center. That's not slandering Pius Suter either. That's a guy that's a hockey player that I like. He's not incredibly useful for DFS because he doesn't shoot a lot. He's not a high percentage conversion guy or anything like that, but he's a guy that can drive the play. And against a bad New Jersey Devils defense, as you mentioned, I think whoever he's on the top line with could be fine. Like the New Jersey Devils are 28th by expected goals against at all strengths since the Siegenthaler injury, 31st by expected goals against at 5-on-5. That's 17 games now. Like it's not a tiny sample without Siegenthaler. That's how bad it's been. And again, like if their goalies don't have great games, the opponent fills the net. Now, obviously, Vancouver typically has not been very good offensively this year. They have had some good games recently. Missing Höglander and Pettersson would probably put a dent in that. But even if Pettersson and Höglander are out, by far the most important player in this Vancouver lineup is in the lineup, and that's Quinn Hughes, right? So I honestly don't even care if Pettersson is in or out. I would have interest in the top line if it's like Pius Suter, Brock Besser, Drew O'Connor, or something like that. That's a line that I would have interest in because New Jersey, that line with Quinn Hughes is better than anything New Jersey can put on the ice right now. And that's why because they would be so cheap, right? Like Pius Suter is only $3,800. He's $2,500 cheaper than Elias Pettersson. So like a Suter, like Besser, Drew O'Connor top line, off the top of my head would be what, about 12K, 12 and a half. Like that's a pretty reasonable top line, and they're going to get heavy minutes just because there's nobody else in the lineup to play. So if Pettersson is out, and we probably won't know until warm-up, I would have interest in a Pius Suter, Brock Besser, whomever line. One, because they'll get a lot of minutes. Two, Suter's not a bad player. And three, like I said, with those guys with Quinn Hughes and Hronek or whomever on the ice, they're better than anything New Jersey has just because Quinn Hughes is that good. So I would have interest in whatever line Pius Suter is on for Vancouver. Other than that, it's like I have no idea what the hell this lineup is going to look like, right? Like we assume Teddy Bluger, second line center, Niels Amand, third line center, Atu Ratu, fourth line center. Who knows where any of the winners line up. Connor Garland one off, fine. Jonathan Lekkerimäki, if he's in the lineup, like fine, like those kinds of things. But the Vancouver top line with Quinn Hughes would be of interest to me because they're cheap. They're going to get a lot of minutes. New Jersey's a bad team, and all those things. And whatever the top line is, will probably be a low in combination because we won't get it until warmups anyway. So I do have interest in whatever Pius Suter's line looks like. On the New Jersey side, the reason Eric Haula is on the top line is like you said, it's not because he can help the top line. It's because he's been sucking ass on the third line and they don't know where else to put him. If he was playing well, he would be anchoring the third line right now, but he's not. They're putting him on the top line because they're hoping that Hischier or Meyer are good enough to carry him. Maybe they are, but that doesn't really excite me as a line combination, especially where, that New Jersey top line, 1.8 goals per 60 minutes in their minutes without Dawson Mercer since the Four Nations Cup. And that's shooting 7%. Like it's a bit low, but that top line hasn't been shooting for a high percentage this season anyway. Even if they're shooting like 10%, they'd be about league average, a little bit better. Like that's not really that great. And the thing is Vancouver has a great penalty kill. Even if Pettersson's out, Vancouver probably has one of the best penalty kills in the league. So now you're asking me to play a New Jersey team without Jack Hughes, without Dougie Hamilton, going up against a great penalty kill, and to play Eric Hall at like 15%. It's like, that's just a pass for me. Like I'm honestly, I think the only thing I have genuine interest in on the New Jersey side, I'd have interest in the top line if Demko starts, just because we don't know if Demko's healthy. Remember, he tried to come back like a month and a half ago or 2 months ago or whatever it was, and was largely pretty bad, which is why he hasn't played since, because they realized he still needed to rehab that injury. If you want to play the New Jersey top line, fine. But with a bunch of mid-price stacks elsewhere on the board, I think there's other places I'd want to go. I think like a Mercer Palat 2-man is probably where my interest would go. Mercer would almost certainly be on the top line. He'll play like 18 minutes. With all the injuries that Vancouver has, their bottom six probably won't be that good. Not that New Jersey's is going to be great, but Vancouver's is going to struggle as well. I think New Jersey 3 is probably the only real interesting thing I have on that side. But honestly, I just don't have a lot of interest in the Devils specifically. I think considering the prices and the best player in the game is on the Vancouver side, I have more interest in Vancouver.
Yeah, and Jack Hughes being an absolute slapdick and getting hurt, ruining our Hughes Bowl tonight. Got to have at least, a couple 3-man Hughes stacks tonight, but Jack, got to make it about him and hurt himself. But anyway, I do agree, though. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in the Devils. I need them to lose as well. But let's talk about the most important game of our night. Our Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2.8 total heading into Long Island. You hate to see it. The Islanders have a 3.2 total. Big news for Columbus. Sean Monahan is back. Eric Goodbranson's back as well. He'll get a golf.
You buried the lead on Eric Goodbranson there.
Yeah, Goodbranson can get a golf clap. Monahan can get a standing O. Here's the thing, right? Because Fantilli, we thank him for his service. He filled in admirably in between Marchenko and Voronkov. The biggest thing Monahan brings to the table, being back, is one, it lengthens the lineup, which is nice. But two, it helps the power play a lot. Montreal, when he was with Montreal, their power play was actually good until he got traded, and it sucked until they brought Lane Hudson and Laine on. So, and you started to see how much they missed him on the power play in Columbus. Like, Fantilli did a good job. Like, he did better than I expected him to do. He really struggled at the beginning of the season, but he really picked it up there.
I mean, there was a tweet from one of the Jackets writers, I think it was Brian Hedger, that since the Monahan injury, the Columbus power play was at 7%.
Yeah.
Like 7, like just the number 7%. Like that's unbelievable, man. Like, holy hell.
It's insane that they're still in the playoff race, to be honest. And now, like, they get Monahan back, who is their most important player for the final stretch run here. That allows Fantilli to play with Jenner and Johnson on the second line, which helps because, Johnson and Jenner have played really well together. You throw Fantilli, who's excellent offensively, into that mix. They're a little overpriced tonight because Fantilli is still priced like he's between Marchenko and Voronkov at 15.7. If you want to play them, that's fine. They have an 8.5% top 2 stack, 8.6% projected ownership. But for only $400 more, you can play Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov. And just to put a cherry on top of how good they've been this season, in 230 minutes together, 3.65 expected goals, 5.7 actual. They were running hot, but they were still creating an absolute shit ton. And the most important part is Monahan will take his net front spot or the Trocheck spot. I forget where he plays on the power play. He's been out for like 30 games, but the power play is going to improve. When that line is together, they also go out a majority of the time with Werenski, which definitely helps. So it's like line 2 is fine, but they're not going to play with Werenski. And for $400 more, you get a fully correlated line with Werenski at 13.9% projected ownership, 12 points.
Are they going to be fully correlated?
I think so.
Or is it going to? I think it's going to be Monahan, Marchenko, Johnson, and then one of Fantilli or Jenner.
Really?
Well, they booted Voronkov off a few games ago as it was. I don't think they're going to add Monahan to the lineup and then add Voronkov as well.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right, actually. I think maybe eventually Voronkov comes back and takes the net front. But, if it's Boone Jenner who takes the net front, that's fine as well. So, for 16-1, at times before dynamic pricing, they were like 19-7. So, listen, the Islanders are a team. I don't even know how to explain the Islanders. It's a good matchup for Columbus. The Islanders don't take a ton of penalties. Their penalty kill is atrocious, though. So, I do really like Columbus 1 here. And, I know it's a shock to everybody that we like Columbus 1 here. But at that price, I'd much rather play them than the Devils. So it would be Columbus 1 for me. If you want to go to Columbus 2, and if it is Jenner on the power play, you do get 2 to 3 guys there. So I think that makes that line a little bit more in play. I just worry that, they're not going to play a lion's share with Werenski. And it's kind of like the Vancouver with and without Hughes to a little bit of a lesser extent. So I still think I would go to Columbus 1. There isn't a super big need for a super cheap line, but if you are going to power play stack Utah or Detroit or something like that, I think a 2-man Danforth Olivier would be acceptable in MME. So it would be Columbus 1 for me. On the Islanders side, they're going Horvat, Palmieri, Holmstrom, Lee, Duclair, Pajot. 12.9% projected ownership on that Horvat line. They're fully correlated. The thing is, so what? Their power play sucks. Tony DeAngelo, 22 games since he started with the Islanders. All of those games, I think, except for one, he was on the top power play unit. He has 2 power play points, and they're both secondary assists. Their power play sucks, but this is a really, really good power play spot. They're not that great at 5-on-5 either. They do have a 20% top 2 stack, which is really high. I think they're fine. I think because of the price, I prefer the Columbus side. And that second line for the Islanders coming in at 10%. They're fine. They've been decent in the 40-minute sample, but it's just I'm not going to play a 10% Islanders second line on this slate, at 14,000. I'll find another line. I just can't not play. I just can't do it. If you like the Islanders, you want to play them. I've had a mental block on the Islanders since Barzal got hurt. So if you want to play them, I think, the Islanders top line is fine. They're fully correlated. It means something, kind of. Because it's a good power play spot. Their power play sucks, but, I think they'd be more of an MME type deal. If I was 20 maxing, I'd have 1 or 2 of 20 of the Islanders top line. So it would be both top lines in this game, but I prefer the Columbus side.
Yeah, and don't forget, Patrick Waugh said that Hudson Fasching is out for the Islanders here tonight, and Adam Bokvist is coming in.
Third line winger.
It might be taking third line right wing. I don't really buy that. I don't think they're going to put Adam Bokvist as the third line right winger here tonight.
They did. They ran him as the fourth line center for a couple games.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe they'd go 11-7 instead. I don't know. I'm going to start on the Islanders side. Honestly, for me, I think it would be the Lee Duclair Pajot line. And the only reason being is that with Monahan and Werenski and those guys on the ice, Columbus is actually pretty good defensively. It's the one line that has been reliably good defensively this season, at least up until Monahan got hurt, was the Monahan line. 2.4 expected goals against, 1.3 actual goals against in 230 minutes. If you take Voronkov off, and there's time with Fantilli, there was time with Chinnikov, there was time with other players on that top line, the expected goals against was about the same. Like, it was a decent defensive line at 5-on-5. So I don't think that's the line I would necessarily want to target. So it would take Horvat, Palmieri, and Holmstrom out of play for me. And at 18,600, I just find that pretty expensive. I think a Bo Horvat one-off is fine. Whatever we think of the Islanders, Bo Horvat has the third highest projected fantasy points on Stochastic tonight of any skater, and second highest of any forward. So it's not that I'm outright fading the Islanders here. It's just I don't know if I would full stack the top line, because like you said, that the power play is nothing. It's not, Columbus's penalty kill is not great, but the Islanders power play is worse than almost any penalty kill in the league. So it's not like it's a good matchup for the Islanders. So I'm out on Islanders 1. It would be Islanders 2. Lee and Pajot have actually played, I don't want to say well, but they've created well offensively together. 66 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals in 135 minutes together. They're not getting a ton of ice time. But I don't wonder if that goes up with Fashing out. They weren't getting a ton of ice time because the third line with Cizikas and Engvall had started to play pretty well over the last couple of weeks. With Bokvist in there, or if they run 11-7, whatever they decide to do, I don't wonder if that second line doesn't get some more minutes here tonight. So, they're coming in over owned, 6% top 2 stack, 10%, 10.1% ownership. That's fine on a slate like this. And, going up against that Columbus second line or even the Columbus third line, I think those are better matchups of 5-on-5 for that line, for the lead Duclair Pajot line. So that's where I would go on the Islanders side. But I think I'm with you that my interest here is on the Columbus side. And, Columbus won. Yeah, I talked about how they were good defensively with or without Voronkov on that top line, as long as Monahan was healthy. Same thing offensively. 3.6 expected goals, over 5 actual goals per 60 with Voronkov there. And it was pretty close to the same without Voronkov, with Johnson or with Fantilli or whomever else had been on that top line at times. Monahan and Marchenko, legitimately one of the best duos in the league through the first 3 months of the season. Honestly, up there with McKinnon, Rantanen, Matthews, Marner, that type of stuff. If you look at their 60-minute goal scoring rates, it was insane. There's no defensive concerns on the Islanders side as far as Columbus is concerned. The concern is Ilya Sorokin, right? Going back to Christmas, the only goaltender with a higher goal saved above expected than Ilya Sorokin is Logan Thompson. Sorokin has been quietly one of the MVPs of the second half. They are in a playoff race solely because of him. That's the one thing that concerns me about Columbus here tonight, is that if you look across the slate, they're probably facing the best goaltender on this slate, and you could say by a wide margin. That's why I'm a little hesitant on Columbus, but that top line, genuinely great. We talked about the power play. It was 23% with Monahan in the lineup and 7% with him out. You mentioned Montreal. It was the same thing when he was with the Habs. Is the Montreal power play was actually about league average when he was there. And then after he got traded, it was bottom 3 in the league. And it wasn't just shooting percentage. Shots went down, shot attempts went down, expected goals went down, everything. He is very smart, in the bottom third of the offensive zone. It's when Corey Perry was at his best. I hate to compare him to Corey Perry, but you know what I mean? Yeah. He was the type of player, he could make the small area plays and the quick passes, and he knew where to go with the puck. And he'll really help that power play. And you mentioned the Islanders penalty kill. It's funny because I saw a quote from Patrick Waugh today. He was getting mad. He was getting mad that people were calling the Islanders power play bad. And he was since February 1st or since January, something like that. He's we're 81%. And it's no, you're actually 76% since February 1st. And it's in the bottom half of the league. And that's your penalty kill getting better. So it's no, this thing sucks. So it is a pretty good matchup for the Columbus power play. They don't draw very many power plays, though. Maybe that'll get better with Monahan in the lineup. Who knows? But I do have interest in Columbus 1 at that price. 16,100 is very reasonable. 12.6% top 2 stack. Again, I have to reiterate that Marchenko and Monahan were one of the best offensive duos in the league through the first 3 months of the season up until Monahan got hurt. So I really do like Columbus 1. Columbus 2 is fine. I have no issue with them. I just think Columbus 1 is the more dominant line as long as Monahan is healthy and he's not rushing back. So for me, it's Columbus 1. I also agree on Columbus 3. They're a legitimately good line. I know, like, I think we poke fun at Olivier and Danforth at times over the season. Certainly I have, but 3.3 expected goals, 2.6 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 in 270 minutes together. They've been like good offensively, and for a third line, like great offensively. So yeah, if you do need a cheap 2-man like Olivier Danforth, something like that from the third line, I think that's fine. But it's, for me, it goes Columbus 1, Islanders 2, Columbus 3 in this game. Yeah,
the Islanders top line just priced out. Like, there's a line in the next game, same price, that I have more interest in than the Islanders. We'll talk about it right now. Minnesota Wild with a 2.3 total. Disrespect. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.2. Dallas going Robertson, Rantanen, and Hintz. Duchesne, Marchment, Granlund. Johnston, Benn, Dodonov. Minnesota going Boldy, Zuccarello, Rossi. Hartman, Hinostroza, Trennan. Oh, God, man. They have so many injuries. Anyway, I'll start on the Minnesota side. The Minnesota top line is the same price as the Islanders top line. 16% top 2 stacks, 6.6% projected ownership. Now, if you're doing quick math, the top 2 stack percentage is 20% lower, but the ownership is in half, and this is a better matchup than it appears. Since Heiskanen has gone out, this team is not very good defensively. Their penalty kill has suffered, and when you trade for Mikko Rantanen, you're not trading for his defense because he doesn't have any. And that top line, since they've gotten together in about 50 minutes, 3 expected goals against, 2.5 actual. That Minnesota top line is fully correlated. Dallas's penalty kill hasn't been great, like we said. It's a better matchup than meets the eye. And I know they have a 2.3 total, but if you are betting the team total over, you would have to imagine that if it hits, it would be the top line doing the damage. So while I don't love Minnesota 1 here, I would rather play them than the Islanders top line. I actually don't really mind them, and they'll probably be on my list for single entry. It won't be high up the list, but they'll be on the list, and that's something considering how much I've loved fading this line. So I don't mind Minnesota 1 here. The other lines, like, it's really just Minnesota 1. They really need to get healthy if they want to have any chance of winning a period in the playoffs. On the Dallas side, I like Dallas here. The problem is their price. $21,400 is really expensive, and that was like the price of Colorado 1 the other night. And Rantanen and Nichushkin both played like 23, 24 minutes. If we're lucky here, Rantanen and Robertson will play 19. That's just too expensive. I don't care that it's a great power play spot. It's not the best 5-on-5 spot. Can they get there in that time? Yes. But again, when you're spending that much of your salary, you want guaranteed minutes. And you get that with the Torontos. You get that with the Edmontons. You get that with the Colorados. You do not get that with this line, considering that they run 3 lines. So in single entry, I'm out on the top line. In MME, they're only coming in at 5.7%. So if you were making 150 or whatever the lotto is tonight, I think, coming in at 11, 12%, getting double the field, I think is fine considering how efficient they can be at times. But for me in single entry, I'm not spending the 21.4. It would be for the second line, Duchesne, Marchment, Granlund at 14.9. They're fully correlated on the second unit. That's not really saying much, but it's saying more than they're fully correlated on the Islanders power play, because that second power play unit has been good. The problem is Dallas, the first power play unit has been very, very good. So it's been less of a split like they've used to done. But for 14-9 and 7.2% projected ownership, they've been pretty good. Like Duchesne and Marchman have had really good numbers together all season, mostly with Seguin. With Granlund, they're fine. They're pretty bad defensively. But again, without Haskin, all these lines aren't great defensively. So for me, it would be Dallas too. If you want to go to the Wyatt Johnston line, like that's fine. They're the same price. But the problem is, right, Wyatt Johnston's $7,200, and his minutes haven't been great either. They've been 17, 18 over the past 4 or 5 games. So really, it would be Duchesne, Marchman, Granlund for me. Minnesota won for me on the Minnesota side. Again, I like them. I'd rather play them than the Islanders. I still think I'd go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you're bang on with Dallas. This is a minutes concern problem. The last 5 games, both Robertson and Rantanen have averaged under 19 minutes. It's like 18 and a half for Robertson, and it's like 18.50 or something like that for Rantanen. Which, like, if this line was 18,900, I'd be like, yeah, they can do that. At that price, they are priced like a Colorado line that will play 22 minutes. They are priced like a perfectly correlated Tampa Bay line where every guy is going to play 20 to 22 minutes. This is a perfectly correlated line, but they're probably going to play 18 to 19 minutes. They have to be incredibly efficient to pay that off. Now, I think the argument for playing the line is ownership, right? Like they're under 6% ownership, projected ownership. Like just think to yourself, like, does that line have a 1 in 16 chance of going off here tonight? And I would say, yes, they do. But I just find it's far too expensive considering what else you have on the slate. Because once you put them in, if you put them in, you probably should play Thomas Harley as well.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the other problem. So now all of a sudden that line gets up to like 28K. You add in your goalie, you add in another defenseman, and then you're looking at your Columbus threes, you're looking at your Minnesota threes, you're looking at your Utah threes. Like that's kind of where you're at if you play Dallas 1 plus Harley. And like, let's face facts. Randon hasn't done shit since he left Colorado. There were probably some shooting percentage issues in Carolina, but there are always shooting percentage issues in Carolina. And there just isn't much of a sample in Dallas yet. The sample that there's been 58 shot attempts per 60 minutes. That's not that great. At that point, you have to be like Vancouver Canucks last year efficient if you're putting up 58 shot attempts every 60 minutes.
You need 120 PDO.
Or 1,004 or 140 even. Yeah. So that's kind of the problem is like, I just think they're too expensive and they're not really showing us a lot. I think there's 2 reasons why you'd play Dallas 1. One, there's not going to be very much ownership. And if you can get, like, these are still great players. The power play has been great with Thomas Harley. It is a good power play spot. So yes, they can absolutely go ham on a short slate like this. Like if they put up 3 goals, they could easily be the Nuts. So I'm not saying like they're a horrific player or anything like that. I just think at their price, they are very overpriced for the minutes that they play. That's just the entire problem here. So I think I'm with you. I would dip down to Dallas too. Like, as good as a top power play for Dallas has been with Harley, Dallas' second power play unit, even with Rantanen in there, the second power play unit is still getting like 33% of the ice time. It's like, maybe a minute and a half a game. That's not nothing. And that second line is perfectly correlated on the power play as well. And it's just as good a power play spot as it is for them, as it is for them, as it is the top line. 14,900, they're very reasonably priced. Probably won't get a ton of minutes, 15 to 16 minutes, but would I rather pay 14,900 for 15 to 16 or 21,500 for 18 to 19, right? Like, give me the cheaper, the line that's $6,500 cheaper. So for me, it's Dallas 2. I don't really have any interest in Dallas 3. They just anytime they've been productive, it's just been riding hot shooting percentages. And Dodonov isn't playing a ton. They don't even want him in the lineup, honestly. Johnson's the only guy on the top power play unit. So for me, it'd be Dallas 2 is my interest on that side. I do like Minnesota 1 as well. Because, as you mentioned, Dallas has struggled defensively since Heiskanen went down. We talked earlier about New Jersey with Siegenthaler. With Dallas, it's an even bigger sample, 19 games. 19 games without Miro Heiskanen. And at 5-on-5, Dallas is both expected goals against and actual goals against. Worse than the Detroit Red Wings, worse than the Montreal Canadiens, worse than the Seattle Kraken, worse than the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is the type of defensive team we're talking about right now because it's not just losing Heiskanen, it's adding Cody Ceci, who's not good defensively. It's the fact that you have to play Matt Dumba every single game now, and he sucks. And it's the fact that you have Michael Granlund on the second line, and he's been a horror show defensively everywhere he's been for like 10 years now. He's a very good playmaker. He's good offensively. He's a horrific defensively. So you add all those pieces on top of Heiskanen being out. This is a bad defensive team now. And you mentioned Minnesota 1, 3 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60. They're all going to play at least 19 minutes. Almost certainly over 20. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. Now, they are missing Jonas Brodin. That hurts. They can't really replace him. They still have Faber. They still have Spurgeon. Declan Chisholm's getting back into the lineup, like all that stuff. Like, that's fine. Losing Brodin hurts, but I think the line, considering ice time, considering actual production, considering price, I think Minnesota 1 is easily my favorite line in this game. So it goes Minnesota 1, then Dallas 2. And then if you want to play Dallas 1, I'm not going to say no because they won't have much ownership.
Yep. Before we get to the next game, just want to let you know, again, there's a lot more people here than there were at the beginning of the show. We do have a promo code for you for the start of MLB season. If you click the link in the chat and use promo code CYCLE, you'll get full access to the MLB stuff, Sims, projections, all that good stuff for $1 until April 4th. Whether you sign up today, tomorrow, or Thursday, you get it for until April 4th when it would renew. If you sign up for monthly, it will renew it monthly. If you sign up for weekly, it will renew it weekly. But you can get access to MLB for the first week for $1 going through that link and using promo code CYCLE. Detroit Red Wings with a 2.7 total heading into Utah. The Soakers have a 3.4 total. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Cooley, Genther, Hayton, Carcone, Doan, Krause, McBain. Detroit going Larkin, Raymond, Rasmussen, Kane, DeBrincat, Casper. Now, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup for Detroit here. And Michael Rasmussen being on the top line kind of sucks. And that line's coming in at 17.4% projected ownership. That's just really high for a Michael Rasmussen line. Like, do I want to play a 15% Eric Holla? No. Do I want to play a 17% Michael Rasmussen? Fuck no.
Yeah, Michael Rasmussen, the Eric Holla of Colin Graffs.
Yes. It's like, what are we doing here? And that top line with Cooley there has been very good defensively in a 200-minute sample. 2.4 expected goals against per 60, 2.1 actual. It's not a very good 5-on-5 matchup for Detroit. It's a good power play matchup for Detroit. And the second line is coming in with lower ownership, 10% projected, and they have been the better offensive line anyway. Wherever Casper goes, the offense goes with him. That line in 113 minutes, 4 expected goals per 60, 3.2 actual. Now, like I said, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup. It's a good power play matchup. What you could do is you could leave off Casper and add in Larkin. That makes that line 18.5, still $100 less than the Islanders' top line. And Detroit are power play slappies. And Utah doesn't have a very good penalty kill. I think if I was doing anything with Detroit, it'd be some sort of 3, 4, or 5-man power play stack. I'm not putting Michael Rasmussen in my lineup at 17%. I'm just not doing it. I'd be more likely to put Marco Kasper in my lineup and full stack Detroit too before I would put Michael Rasmussen in my lineup. So if you had to 5-on-5 stack a line, it would be the second line. But again, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup. It is a very good power play spot, and I would do 3 or 4 or 5-man power play stacks. On the Utah side, there is an absolute boatload of ownership on Utah as well. However, 22.3% top 2 stack for that top line, 19% projected ownership. They have been a really good line. They're fully correlated, and Detroit's penalty kill sucks. Also, Detroit's not very good defensively at 5-on-5. Granted, they haven't been as awful as they have been, but still Detroit. I think I'd be way more likely to play Keller, Schmaltz, and Cooley at 19% than I would even sniffing Michael Rasmussen at that ownership. So I do really like Utah 1 here. Utah 2 is a bit insane. 14,000, 20.2% projected ownership. They have been really good. That's just a lot of ownership, man. Like, I'd rather just go play Dallas 2. And I understand, like, Dylan Guenther's a super important part to the power play. I just add him into a power play stack and go about my day. So for me, it would honestly be Utah 1 or Utah power play. And on Detroit, it would absolutely be a power play stack if I'm playing Detroit.
Yeah, on the Utah side, I honestly do think a power play stack would be my favorite thing to do on the Utah side because – you know, I think you mentioned it on Saturday's show, or maybe it was a show last week. Either way, it was like it's at the point now with Utah where like the top line is good, but you don't want to stack them without Guenther as you would like Toronto without William Nylander or something like that, just because he is so vital on the power play. And like you're right, this is a great power play matchup. I don't think it's, maybe it is amongst Detroit fans. I don't think it's getting enough press just how bad this Detroit penalty kill is. At 4-on-5, the penalty kill is dead last by goals against per 60 minutes. Over their last 30 games, dead last by goals against per 60 minutes. Literally the worst penalty kill in the league for months now. So the only issue here would be that they don't take a lot of penalties. 1.9 times shorthanded per game. Since the Four Nations break, it's the lowest in the league. 1.7 times shorthanded per game over the last 30 games. Also the lowest in the league. Like Utah might only get 1 or 2 power plays here tonight, but their power play is good enough and the Detroit penalty kill is bad enough that they can go 1 for 1. So like, with how good the top line has been, 2.8 expected goals, 4.6 actual goals per 60, you know, playing 18 to 20 minutes, depends how much power play time that they do or don't get. With how good the top line has been, but how integral Guenther is to the power play, I think it's just like top line plus Guenther plus Sergachev and let's go. I think that's kind of how I would approach Utah. If you don't want to play the Utah power play guys, the third line has also been good. It's one of those things, like if you are playing a Dallas top line, and you do need a cheap third line somewhere, like that Utah third line, 71 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals, 4.3 actual goals per 60. They don't get a lot of ice time. Most third lines don't. They get 13 to 14 minutes, but they have legitimately been very good together. And the Detroit bottom 6, well, they have hockey players. We can say that much.
They have that's about it.
Yeah. So I think it's Utah power play stack for me that I would be focusing on. If you want to just play Utah 1 and leave Guenther off, like I think that's okay. But I do think like he's shooting the puck a lot and he's so vital to the power play that I would have a hard time leaving him off. And then Utah 3, I think is certainly playable. On the Detroit side, I agree that this is basically going to be my analysis until they put Marco Kasper back on the top line. I am playing the second line instead of the top line. That Detroit top line without Kasper, ever since they hired McClellan, 2.5 expected goals, 2.3 actual goals per 60. That's dog shit. Like there's no other way to put it. Meanwhile, the second line with Casper, as you mentioned, expected goals and actual goals hovering around 4. Like, they have just been tremendous offensively. He has been a difference maker for them, whichever line he's been on. So if I do stack a Detroit line, it would be Detroit 2. But Utah has started to take some more penalties. That was one thing where, like, in the first 2.5 months of the season, they took a lot of penalties, and then they got better after Christmas. But since the Four Nations, it's kind of reverting back to old habits where they're taking nearly 3 penalties per game. If you give this Detroit top power play unit 3 or 4 opportunities, they are absolutely going to make you, well, I shouldn't say absolutely, nothing in hockey is absolute, but they are probably going to make you pay for that at least once. So, like, Kane, DeBrincat, Larkin, probably, or like Larkin, Raymond, Kane. I honestly think I would be most tempted by Larkin, Kane, DeBrincat, just because that second line is generating so much offense that, like, DeBrincat is shooting the puck a lot. Patrick Kane has 35 shots in his last 10 games. Like, those guys are really shooting the puck a lot. And then you can add in Dylan Larkin just because he gets that top power play time, and he is a pretty key cog of that top power play unit. So I think it's like Larkin, Kane, DeBrincat is basically my favorite stack on the Detroit side. And then, but my favorite thing in this game is a Utah power play stack. And I also don't mind Utah 3 if you need a cheap stack for Dallas.
Yep. Let's talk about, is a defenseman here. Top of the board, 2 guys above 7K, Werenski and Dobson. Like, Dobson's been fine, don't get me wrong, but that power play sucks. But he has been playing 22, 23, 24 minutes. And that's big for him because there's times he'd play like 18, 19. I think Dobson's fine in that top range, but I'd go Werenski 1, Quinn Hughes 2, Harley 3, and then Dobson, and then something like Sider, Sergachev. You know what I mean? I do like this top range. I'm normally anti-top range, but I think there's a lot to like up there.
It's not that I really like the top end range. It's that the bottom end is just an absolute freak show tonight. I'll bring up, these are the top projected players. Top projected defensemen, rather, priced under $4,000 on DraftKings tonight. Tyler Myers, Ben Sherratt, Ian Cole, Cody Ceci, John Marino, the highest among them at 1.8 fantasy points per $1,000. There is not a lot for cheap defensemen on the board here tonight. That's another reason why I don't really like Dallas, because from the lack of options in the cheap-ish range here tonight, I feel like you almost have to pay up like at least 4, if not 5K for both your defensemen. So, like, Quinn Hughes is the top of the board easily. He's the highest. He's my personal highest projected defenseman. He's number 2 on Stochastic, and his point per dollar is basically neck and neck with Werenski. So whichever you want to play, I think it just comes down to the rest of your lineup. But Hughes and Werenski 1, 2 for sure. Noah Dobson after them. In the mid-price range, like Sean Durzi has a fine price considering I think it's a good matchup against Detroit. Philip Hronik, he's not that bad. I do like Mikhail Sergachev. If you don't want a Utah power play stack, I honestly think just playing Sergachev as a one-off is perfectly fine here tonight. After that, then you're getting down to like Ian Cole, Marcus Pettersson, Oli Mata, Mike Kesselring, Eric Goodbranson, like whatever else he is, he's $2,500 here tonight. So, like, if you need a Stoneman punt, I guess he's playable. Maybe he gets 19, 20 minutes, but there's just not a lot in the cheap range that I'm really targeting.
You don't want to play Victor Mancini with his 10 minutes. I mean, yeah, it would probably be Goodbranson. Maybe he plays 16 minutes and trips into 3 pucks, and you get your 6.9 DK points, and you're happy. At that point, like, honestly, if you have to punt a guy and you get 5.6 or like 4.1 DK points, you take it. Anyway, let's talk about goalies. I don't want to, but we will. Like, I don't want to play any goalie here. Like, Ottinger's at the top of the board at 8,200. if they were fully healthy, yeah, I consider it, but like not at the current state. I guess in the top range, it would be Sorokin just because of how good he's been. But like when he's good, he's really good. But when he's bad, he's really bad. So like if you think you're getting good Sorokin, you play good Sorokin. I guess that would be the guy. We have to see if Demko does start, he's 7,400. I think that's fine to take a gamble on in GPPs. I have no idea what to expect for him, but at that price, I'm willing to take a gamble on a ceiling performance. Like Philip Gustafsson, 7,200, I think is fine. Merzlikins is fine. Like all these goalies are fine. I don't hate anyone. I don't like any of them, though. I'm not confident in a single goalie here tonight. So if you like a guy, play him. I honestly don't know where I'm going for goalie. I think they're all in play. I just don't want to play any of them.
Yeah, I mean, the top projected goalie is Jake Ottinger, which makes sense when you think about the low goal total for Minnesota. I just really do worry that Dallas defensively is being kind of overvalued, and that this ends up like a 5-3 Dallas win where Ottinger gives up 3 goals on 21 shots or something like that. You know what I mean? So I like Sorokin here tonight. I do worry about playing him against Columbus, but it's one of those like, if he can play anywhere near as well as he's been playing for the last 3 months, then I'm not worried about him getting shelled on like 4 goals for 9 shots and getting yanked. You know what I mean? I think like maybe the worst thing that happened, I mean, not the worst thing. The worst thing is obviously that he gets yanked early, but it's like maybe it's like 4 goals on 29 shots or something like that. I hope that's the worst that happens. I don't mind Vejmelka here. It can get dangerous playing a goalie against Detroit just because of that Detroit power play. Like if they only put up 25 shots, but 5 of them are on the power play and 3 of those are goals or something, you know what I mean? Like that is definitely in the cards, but as long as Utah can stay out of the penalty box, and like I said, for months they had been doing that until very recently. So if they can stay out of the penalty box, I think Vejmelka would be fine. I don't mind Jacob Markstrom here. I know he's been kind of shaky lately, but like if Pettersson and Höglander are out, it's like unless Quinn Hughes wills this team to 3 goals, like how does Markstrom get shelled here? That feels like famous last words.
Let's find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out in about 5 hours how Markstrom can get shelled by a Vancouver team missing all those players. But it feels like one of those, like he shouldn't be that bad. I honestly don't mind Merzlikins.
Yeah.
7,400. I mean, it's not like the Islanders have been scoring at times, but like there's nothing about the Islanders offense that really terrifies me. And maybe the Columbus defense is bad enough where he faces like 42 shots. And even if he lets in 3 goals, you're fine. So for me, I think it's Sorokin, Vejmelka, Markstrom, Merzlikins. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you like someone, you play him. That's always the case with goalies. We will be back tomorrow for a normal size slate. I don't even know how many games, but I would assume between 8 and 12. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
Yeah, I think tomorrow's like 10 or 11 games or something like that. Do the Hartman. I'm going with Ryan Hartman.
He might get a Gordie Howe hat trick tonight.
I'll take it.
I'm going Alex the Brinkat. I wanted to go like Atu Ratu or whatever, just because I need the Devils to lose. But like, let's be real, we're going to Brinkat. Yeah. Good luck, everybody, tonight. This was 4-game slates are fun to break down because you kind of can go a little bit deeper on some of these teams. Hall and Rasmussen, really, I'm going to go take some Advil. But good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you in the Discord, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2:00.
Good luck tonight, everyone.